What it do, Dolphins fans? Jacob here, Miami Dolphins Syndicate. We are at the point in the offseason where almost everything that would have happened has already happened. There are a few maybe trades left that the Dolphins could explore. Jalen Ramsey, Tyreek Hill, obviously. Free agency for the most part is done. Rasul Douglas could be a sign the Dolphins bring in. The draft has happened. Free agency for the most part is done with. So this team, as it is probably going to be what the Dolphins look like next season. And myself included, with most Dolphins fans, there's sure a lot of skepticism as to whether this Dolphins team is going to be that good. How good will they be? Is this a playoff team? Is this going to be the last year of Mike McDaniel and Chris' career? So many questions, not a whole lot of answers. But if you look outwardly, the NFL may have given us a little bit of assurance that they believe this Dolphins team is going to be good. With the offseason, there are so little opportunities for real excitement as NFL fans, but the few moments that we find, we take advantage and we enjoy, and one of those is the schedule release. And we did make a video talking about the schedule as a whole, even though I do believe it is a pretty good schedule for the Dolphins, not necessarily a real difficult stretch of games like last year where you really had to go through a gauntlet at the end of the season, and that ended up being one of the reasons Dolphins missed out on the playoffs. A relatively favorable schedule for the Dolphins, but not just the games themselves and when they happen date-wise, also time-wise, where the Dolphins are going to be playing their games. 5 primetime games the Dolphins will have this upcoming season. Primetime games are something the NFL takes really seriously. They try to put together their best matchups. We know just because you have a primetime game doesn't mean you're guaranteed to keep that game, as we've seen games flexed out, flexed in. Last week, last year, a horrible matchup between the Dolphins and the Browns was flexed out. And watching that game, thank God it was, because that was abysmal football to watch. In weeks 3, 4, 9, 11, 15, and 16, I'm going to count in there a 6th game being the game in Madrid, not necessarily prime time, but a standalone game. The Miami Dolphins would be participating in 6 standalone games. Week 3 against the Bills, week 4 against the Jets, week 9 Thursday Night Football against the Ravens. We always find a way to play the Baltimore Ravens. Last year was the first year in, I believe, 4 seasons that the Dolphins and Ravens did not match up. Week 11 against the Washington Commanders over in Madrid. Week 15, Monday Night Football against the Steelers. Week 16, huge matchup there at the end of the season, December 21st, against the Cincinnati Bengals. You count that as 6 standalone games that the Miami Dolphins will be participating in 5 primetime games, tied for 3rd in terms of most games on the primetime schedule, tied with the likes of the Buffalo Bills, the Lions, the Chargers, the Super Bowl winning Eagles, the NFC Championship runner-up, the Commanders, the 49ers, and the Falcons, all of which have 5 games on the primetime slate. The only 2 teams above the 5-game threshold is naturally the Chiefs at 7 games and the Cowboys at 6. You look at those 5 games, and you could argue the Dolphins are the worst team to get 5 games. Again, the Falcons, Bills, Lions, Chargers, Eagles, 49ers, and Commanders. And even you look at the teams that have 4 games. You're looking at the Ravens, the Bengals, the Broncos, the Packers, the Texans, the Rams, the Vikings, Steelers, the Buccaneers, and then rounding out with the Seahawks. I'd say a majority of those teams are better. So what is the NFL looking at? What is the NFL seeing in this Dolphins team that we don't? And the first thing we could point at is maybe Dolphins fans are being a little too harsh in terms of our assessment of last year. Maybe it just is as simple as this team, for one, had extremely bad luck, both with injuries, both in terms of how the season rolled out. Games that easily could have gone the Dolphins' way ended up flipping the other way. Looking at Bills game, looking at Cardinals game, looking at Colts game when Tua was out. So many one-score games, including some really good teams in there, could have easily gone the other way. The injuries stacking up, Tua missing time, Tyreek Hill being hurt all year, being down to rookie edge rushers and Emmanuel Ogbah, who got back off the streets at the end of the season at that department. The injury luck was not there for the Dolphins last year. The one-score game, the last-minute scores, is probably a better way of looking at it. The Dolphins faced last year. You're talking about potentially a wild-card team, and then what ultimately being a very embarrassing loss at the end of the season to kick us out of the playoffs. And then you look at the roster itself, and what did this 2023 Dolphins team have that made it so successful? They had a strong interior of the offensive line. The Dolphins used a primary pick, one of their top picks, on the interior of the offensive line. They had a stronger interior of the defensive line. Saw Zach Sealer and Christian Wilkins paired up. We now see a first round pick in Kenneth Grant matched together with Zach Sealer. We saw a strong edge department, which should be healthier by the time the season comes around. You're looking at Bradley Chubb coming back. You're looking at Jalen Phillips coming back. You're looking at year 2 with Chop Robinson. On the offensive side of the ball, look at the components that were there and look at the components that are there now. Tua at the helm, led the league in passing that year. Out wide, you had Tyreek Hill, who was in the running for the MVP race all the way up until the last few weeks of the season. Looking at Jalen Waddle, who, yeah, the jury's still out as to what Jalen Waddle will fully be as a Dolphins player. Yeah, and this is a big prove-it year for Waddle to, silence some doubters, and including myself with that. You're looking at the running back group that we had that year. We had a rookie, Devon Achane, who has only gotten better, strengthened the running back group this last offseason by getting rid of Raheem Mostert, replacing him with a 26-year-old Alexander Madison, bringing in a rookie in Ollie Gordon, as well as a second-year player in Jalen Wright. In this running back group, you pair that with the help we found on the interior of the offensive line, the running game should be a lot better. The passing game should be a lot better considering the fact that Tyreek Hill is healthy. So you look at the components that we've added, you look at what we're bringing back, you look at the names that were on that 2023 team, the names that are on this 2025 team, and you can start to connect the dots in your mind to justify to yourself, maybe we are not as bad as we think we are. That's a big maybe. That's a big if. And right now, sitting here, May 16th, I'm clawing on to anything to give me as a Dolphins fan hope. It was a bleak year last year, and the offseason did not really uplift us too much. I think Chris Greer did a good job. I've said this time and time again on this channel. He could have made the splashy signing, the splashy draft pick to try to save his job instead of taking Kenneth Grant. You could easily justified taking Tyler Warren, tight end out of Penn State, went to the Colts with the very next pick. Matthew Golden, wide receiver, taken in the first round. Meka Ibuka, a flashy skill position player to maybe appease the fan base a little bit. Instead, you go to the positions of need. Interior defensive line with Kenneth Grant. You get another guard. You sign a guard coming over from the Steelers. You address the secondary in the draft. You probably may still lose Jalen Ramsey, but if not, that's a bonus in my mind at this point. So you look at the pieces that were there. Look at the pieces that are here right now. You look at the moves we made in the offseason to address positions of need. Maybe, just maybe, we're being a little too critical of this Dolphins team. The NFL doesn't just give away primetime games. So to be tied at third with 8 different teams, including last year's Super Bowl champion, only behind the biggest brand of sports in the Cowboys and the best team over the last half decade in the Kansas City Chiefs, that says a lot. The NFL clearly considers the Dolphins to be good product and good entertainment. Now, we should have a flashier offense and a sexier offense to watch than we saw last year. So maybe, if nothing else, even if we are bad record-wise, the offense is going to be fun to watch, which could be something the NFL is thinking about, looking at the Bengals last year, which were one of the most entertaining teams to watch on one side of the ball and one of the most disappointing teams to watch on the other side of the ball. Maybe that's what the Dolphins are. Maybe we're a little bit better at that. We will have to see. Let me know your thoughts down below. Do you match what the NFL is looking at the Dolphins like? Or are you still on the pessimistic side? Let me know your thoughts down below. Catch you next time. Go Dolphins.